Hey, this is Trent Rush. Welcome to the Under the Halo podcast. This week, we're taking a deep dive into the 25U crew, the young wave of Angel talent, with maybe the man that's leading that group. That would be Angels catcher Logan O'Hoppe, who's off to a tremendous start to this 2024 season. We get into his leadership approach, his catching style, learn a little bit more about his family, and just learn about who is Angels catcher Logan O'Hoppe. Look, can you help settle a debate? We got something. So, video guy Ricardo over here. We're trying to decide what a beach is, defining what a beach is. I am saying it has to be along an ocean. He thinks any body of water with sand is a beach. Do you have an opinion on this? I thought a Long Island guy might have something to say about this.
I'm afraid you're not going to be very happy with my answer.
Well, that's fine. What are you saying?
On Long Island, we have the Great South Bay, and there are little, what I call beaches along that. So if there's sand and a body of water, I would say it's a beach. A lake is different though. Like no beaches on a lake unless there's sand. Then you have a mini beach.
I was getting the pitch on like, oh, Lake Michigan is huge. It's basically a freshwater ocean, thus not an ocean.
No, I think a beach is sand and water. I'm sorry.
Logan, we agree on a lot of things. We're gonna have to agree to disagree
totally okay.
on this one, which is all right.
Okay.
Hey, you know what's been kind of fun is, like this time of year, we've been talking about like the draft and all that stuff coming up. And man, I was thinking about your process. A 23rd rounder, all of a sudden now here you are showing out in the big leagues. Can you take me through like what that time in your life was like when you were trying to figure out, okay, am I going to end up in baseball? How's this all going to play out? What do you remember about that time?
Yeah, I remember being set on college day 3, and then I heard my name called, and I was like, I have to do this. It was a dream of mine since as long as I can remember. It was a stressful day for sure. Looking back, I would have treated it the exact same. I wouldn't have enjoyed it or relaxed anymore. I still would have stressed about it considering how big of a life change it ended up being. But yeah, it was a crazy day, and I'm getting old pretty quick. It seems like it was a while ago, 6 years. So yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool, and I'm always excited for those guys that get to go through it.
Were you kind of thinking though, like, did you think it was going to get to day 3? Were you talking with some people thinking it was going to maybe be sooner? Maybe feeling like a little anxious as the rounds keep clicking by? Do you remember those feelings?
I figured it was going to be on day 3.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't get ahead of myself or anticipate 1 or 2, but it was going to be day 3. I just really didn't know if it was going to happen, period. And then when it did, it was super humbling and overwhelming and all the emotions that go into it. But like I said, it was a huge life change, and I'm happy I chose to do that instead of go to school. I'd
love to know, too, like when you get into the Philly system, and by the time I think Angel fans only know you as a highly touted prospect, which is what you were by the time the Angels made the trade to acquire you. But coming up, I mean, a lot of times highly touted prospect doesn't happen with 23rd round picks. What was that time in your life like when you're trying to prove yourself with a lot of talented players, and how are you going to fit in baseball? Yeah, well, I wasn't at all. Obviously, being in the 23rd round out of high school, it's just another kid showing up as a part of the group, but never tried to pay attention to the lists or any prospect things like that. Obviously, you look at it and you want to get to that point, but that was never a main driving factor for me. I always loved to work and get things done and do things the best way I knew how. So luckily I had some really good people around me that I could look up to and teach me to do things the right way, and something I still take pride in now. So I wouldn't say chasing it helped me get to that point. It was just staying in the process of doing it right every day. Talk about that process. Logan, one thing that I really appreciate about you, you're a grinder. I mean, we see it and pretty regimented in your system and how you're going to go about it and the work leading up to a game day. Can you tell us a little bit about what your process is like from the time you show up at the ballpark to when we see you out for the starting lineups? Yeah, I show up normal days around noon for 6:38, and yeah, I'll go in, I'll get my body stretched out, get my lift or mobility routine in, and then go get something to eat. And then we'll go to a couple meetings from there, whether it's catching meetings, hitting meetings. I'll hit a little bit after that. I'll get my routine in the cage done and then hop out for early work. Hop in, get dressed, go to stretch, BP, and then come in after that and then go to a couple more meetings. So starting pitcher meeting, and then go in, get something to eat, get changed, stretched again, and out to play. the prep work for a major league game, especially for a catcher. I mean, I can only imagine this time, like we're seeing a lot of pitchers that first part of the year, you kind of knew that the rotation was going to be on a daily basis. It's a little bit different the last month and a half or so. So what is that process like when maybe you're seeing a guy for a first time, or maybe you've caught him once or twice before, and you're trying to put a game plan together with the new starting pitcher? What goes into that?
Yeah, I'll look back if it's a new guy that I haven't caught in a while or only caught in spring. I'll look back at his outings when he wasn't here. Try to see what his strengths were and what helped him in the past, and a lot of feedback from him too. And even catchers in the minor leagues that worked in them we'll talk to and get feedback from them. So it's a whole organizational effort for sure. But that's how I'll approach those guys. But the guys that have been here, it's just the ebbs and flows of the adjustments they make and sticking to what works.
Sure. There was a video that has kind of been circulating on social media, and I've seen you out there too in the bullpen before a game, like the stretching that you do to get your body right. You almost remind me of like a hockey goalie, like getting ready to go make a bunch of saves. What goes through that process, and like can you tell me a little bit about your routine there?
Yeah, the physical preparation part is something I'm really big on, and I take a lot of pride in. Like I said earlier, I'm getting old pretty quick, so I feel like I need to take more and more every year. But no, as far as the stuff in the bullpen, that's just activation stuff. All my stretching is done in the weight room, and my mobility stuff, everything like that, to keep myself mobile and loose and feeling the best I can. Doesn't turn out that way every day, but I definitely do what I can to control it and feel good.
When you and I spoke in spring training, and we were talking about, okay, how many games is Logan O'Hoppe going to catch this year at the major league level? And I remember you telling me something that you dedicated your entire offseason to doing absolutely everything in your power to catch as many games as possible. When you say that, what do you mean by it? What are the things that you did to get yourself in position to work an incredibly heavy load at that catching position?
Yeah, we'd be here for a while to talk about the kind of programming. Luckily, my trainer back home, Adam Belding, his name is, he's a game changer. He's changed my life, not only my career with how everything's gone. He's pretty close with Juice, our strength coach here as well. So it's a connected effort, and no, they've been great with all that stuff. But as far as everything, I'm talking about my sleep, my diet, making sure my headspace is in a good spot, hydration, making sure the relationships around me in my life are up to date and where they need to be, and everyone's good, just so I can be out there with a clear mind and make sure everything's going well. You know, I'm a big believer in controlling what I can, and I know we can't control a lot, especially in the baseball world, but outside in life, there is a lot we can control, and I feel like all of that goes into just being in a peaceful spot and being in the moment.
Logan, sometimes I hear you talk about these things, and you almost remind me more of a Fortune 500 CEO than being a 24-year-old playing baseball. I mean, when you think about, a lot's been made about the journal that you keep and that whole process that goes into everything that you do. It seems like there's so much intent with every decision you make. Is the journal still a part of the program? How does that all work?
Very much so. Yeah. Very much so. Yeah, I'm writing in it a lot this year and learning a lot and going back to things that have worked, and it's helped me stay on track. So that's been a huge tool for me as far as staying in the same spot every day and keeping a level head.
So along those same lines, then you get thrust into the Angel system where you are in AA, and your roommate is Zach Neto. And I know you guy who was just drafted. All of a sudden you guys are sharing a space together, figuring out what the system's like, how you're going to get to the major leagues. We all love Zach. I can't think of two more different people sometimes than you and Zach Neto. So when you guys are roommates, what do you remember about that experience?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever shared this or not. Maybe I have, but we were living together in Arizona, me and our shortstop. I'm not going to name names, but our shortstop. And there was a house of, I think it was 6 of us. And I walk in the pantry one day, and there's a huge family-sized bag of Takis, and Neto hadn't debuted at the time. And I walked out, and he was on the couch, and I asked him, I was like, do you want to play in the big leagues? And he said, yeah. And I held the bag up. I was like, well, this isn't going to help your case at all. And I threw him back in the pantry, and Neto, we laughed it off. And then I think it was, I've done this a couple times, so I don't know when the first time was, but grabbed a bowl, and I was cooking dinner, and I just put broccoli in it, and he was sitting on the couch again, and I just like slid it over to him, and I was like, that'll help you get to the big leagues. So I'm trying to push vegetables on him even more. It's a work in progress, but the Takis have gone from as far as I know. I don't know what's in his pantry at the house now, but I may have to ambush him with a visit one day and see what his pantry looks like.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about the relationship of you two, because clearly, I mean, look, where this organization is right now, and a lot of people are looking to the future, and they want to see what's the next chapter of Angels baseball going to look like. And in many ways, maybe we're seeing that start to be written right now with you two. What is that relationship like between you and Zach? Because you guys are such important pieces of this organization.
Yeah, it's a brotherhood, I would say. We really did come up. I know he had just gotten drafted and I got traded. I had a couple years in the minor leagues under my belt, but we really did come over in a similar situation. You know, we didn't know names and didn't know how things are run and still getting our feet wet. So I think we hit it off because of that from an early stage. And now it's a fun relationship. You know, we're living in the same building and different floors. We have our own space again.
It's good for you.
But yeah, it's really good. And I mean, I love being around him because he cares and he wants to do it the right way, and he does. And I think that care is something that's you know, really carries over to everybody else. And like I just keep saying, I appreciate having him because he wants it as bad as anybody.
Is he eating his vegetables?
It's a work in progress for sure. That's always a work in progress with that.
I remember when you first came up at the end of the 2022 season, you had only been here maybe a week, and then I can't remember who it was. Somebody else had gotten called up, and right away you were showing that other young player around and kind of, you know, taking them through of, hey, this is where you go. This is kind of your walk through the clubhouse. This is kind of how things are going to go. It just felt like the moment you got here, you had a presence about you that led to, you know, some could describe it as leadership or mentorship. In many ways, Logan, it seems like that comes pretty natural to you. But how would you describe maybe that responsibility you feel when there are other young players that come up to try to help them make that bridge into Major League Baseball?
Yeah, I just understand the position they're in. You know, like being a rookie and coming up here was not long ago. I mean, it was last year for me. So I understand the spot they're in, and I know that the guys that have been here a while have their things to do. They have to get their work in. So I feel like it just takes a load off those guys, and they can help the younger guys as well. And that's something that, like you said, I feel like is easy for me to do, and I enjoy doing that and showing guys around. It also helps me get my feet acclimated a little bit and understand routines a little bit better, as silly as that sounds. But it's true. So like you said, it's something that I really enjoy, and looking forward to taking the guys that come up in the future around.
I know that you've also mentioned in the past just the amount of learning and listening and trying to take in everything that you can at this level. It's tough to do at this game. It really is. And your process sounds like you have the right order for how you want to go about things. But last season, you get hurt. And you have to spend 3 months and change to get back onto the field, which you ended up doing. Pretty impressive you were able to do that. But at the same time, you're with the guys every day. You're on the road to the team, soaking it as much as you could. What do you remember about that experience, and what do you feel like you learned from that time being with the guys every day, even when you weren't out there on the field?
Yeah, it's a much different routine being hurt. Talk about controlling everything you can to get something right. That was a huge takeaway from that experience, and I don't want to ever go through it again, but it did help me a lot. Also helped me a lot off the field, because when you're not playing, all you have is life off the field, you know, even when you're in the dugout. So it did teach me a lot about how I want to go about those things away from here without the lights and cameras on. But as far as on the field goes, I mean, it's tough to replicate playing in a big league game from the dugout. I also learned how easy it is to watch from the dugout and how easy the game looks from the dugout. So I take every piece of advice I get from someone watching with a grain of salt, because I know how much easier it looks from the outside looking in. So it's a pretty valuable experience I got to learn, and I think it's going to help me in the long run.
I was having this conversation with Mark Langston the other day about coming back from a rehab assignment and the whole process. And late in his career, he had an arm injury, and he came back, and first guy he faced, his second pitch, Derek Jeter takes him yard. And he goes, I did everything I could physically to get there, but mentally I hadn't necessarily taken that part into the equation. And it was a little bit of a struggle when he first came back. And then he was like, you know, things ended up clicking in by his next start. But did you maybe find some of that too, that, okay, you can physically get everything right, but staying sharp on the mental side is maybe every bit as important. Did you feel the same way?
Yeah, that experience was an opportunity to use what I know as far as the mental side goes. I really took a deep dive into the mental side in the minor leagues, and that started from the beginning. My mental strength coach with the Phillies at the time, who I still keep in contact with, she was huge with teaching me how to go about things and how I wanted to approach different situations. So she still helps me now with different things that come up. So yeah, that was, like I said, an opportunity to practice what I know, but I'm happy. I take pride in that for sure.
Yogi Berra, 90% of the game is half mental. I mean, when you think about the importance of that side of it, like
Yeah.
you talk about your time in the Phillies going through it and so much work goes into it. How important really is the mental side to succeeding on the field?
It's everything. Everyone here has talent, and even in the minor leagues, everybody has talent too. What's going to separate guys is the mentality and the mental side, and I'm a big believer in that. And I've seen it firsthand. When I'm not going well, I'm not as sharp mentally, and then when I am, I'm doing all right. So, yeah, it's something that is not going to be perfect. It's always going to be up and down, and going to ride that roller coaster for sure, and try to make the bumps a little less steep, and try to get back to a flat line and a level head. But yeah, I think it's a game changer and a kryptonite for a lot of people.
On the field, there's a couple of questions that I just had that I'm hoping you'll answer for me here, just really for my personal curiosity. But you have, I felt like we saw you a lot on one knee last year, a little bit earlier this year. Then I feel like last week I saw you in a squat, and I felt like I saw you on one knee again in warm-ups. How do you weigh how you're going to set up behind the plate these days?
Yeah, I did it when I debuted. I went to a knee, and then with 2 strikes or a man on, I went up to a traditional stance. And then last year, did the same thing, got away from it towards the end. I started going down to just a knee. And then this year, for the first half, really, I just stayed on a knee. Could never really feel athletic enough down from a knee. When there's no one on our low leverage spots, then it's okay to do, because you don't need to move around, and I still will block those pitches, you know. But after a couple balls that got by me, I just said this is enough, and I know I'm more athletic than this, than just being stuck in a spot. So I'll still be on a knee when there's no one on. I'm still learning to move out of that, even if I don't need to. But being on 2 feet, I feel like that's the most athletic I can be.
But is some of that, like the reason maybe you still do it in the low leverage situations, is that because it's just a little bit of like knee preservation? Is that
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, it's more just to save my legs, and it really did help. Like, my legs have been feeling great, and they haven't felt any worse since I've gone to 2 feet. But it really is a game changer. But the thing that helps my legs more than anything is the clock, because the games are going so much faster. I'm not back there for as long. Sure,
but that makes a big difference. Makes a really big difference.
Huge difference.
So you feel like being in a squat, because I know that, I mean, there's a lot of studies on this. There's been a lot of waves and trends in baseball. And so, but for you, it's just purely, I feel like I can be the best catcher I can be in a more traditional squat. That's kind of where you're at.
100%. Yeah, try. I mean, when I'm on a knee, I take away my hip mobility and any power. I can go left or right. So I don't want to lose that, obviously. So one thing I do think about the stances is that a lot of people get caught up and think it's got to be one way to do it. But like you said, I've changed 3 times. I'm going to continue to change my career. And I think adaptability is the best way to improve, and adjustability. So I think people often get caught up too much in the one way, this is how to do it. And that's not true. And I used to be like that when I was much younger. I had to do it this way, or it wasn't going to be right. But I think the more adaptable I am and open I am to different things, then the better off I'll be.
There have been some interesting moments already this season. I can't help but think about the walk-off home run that you hit against Houston, which may be the strangest walk-off I've ever seen. I would love to know, I'll give you my take in a minute. I would just want to know from your perspective, what was that moment like from the time that ball left your bat and you're watching Trey Cabbage go down that left field line trying to pick that ball up? You looked confused as anything I've ever seen. What were you thinking in that moment?
Yeah, I didn't really hide my confusion too well. It was what it looked like was exactly what I was thinking. So I hit it. I was like, wow, I can't believe I actually got one that may go out. And then I thought he caught it at first.
Yeah.
And then I saw that he didn't, and I didn't know if it was fan interference or not. But then I just saw KP running back, and I immediately thought if he passes me or I pass him, I'm out. And went back, and luckily all the chaos ended up sorting out the right way. Bo not touching us and us not crossing paths. But then I just asked the umpire, I was like, do I just touch the plate and go? Because I knew that they would review it after, too. So it was like a bunch of things going through my head.
Yeah.
But then I touched home plate, and then everyone was going nuts. I had like gum on me. I was like, this isn't really not going to be good if they review it. And then I have to
The
run
shirt was off. The jersey was off.
I was trying to throw it right back on because I was like, I can't be out on first base without a jersey. But luckily it all worked out, and then everything settled down, and all the confusion obviously went away.
So, okay, but and John Boy did a great breakdown of this, and I thought it was really cool too. The heads-up play you made when Pilar, who wisely touched second base for a second time on his way back, I didn't know in the moment how close that foot race was. Like when you saw KP coming, I mean, you had to be thinking, I have to get back now. Like, what was going through your mind?
That was it. I was like, I have to get back, and I really didn't know if, I mean, looking back, it wouldn't have mattered, but I really didn't know at the time, especially with all the rule changes. Like, I tell umpires this all the time. With the rule changes and stuff, I'm asking questions all the time, like, because things are much different from last year, and I'm sure next year they're going to be different than this year. So I really didn't know a lot of the rules. All I did know is that if he passes me or I pass him, then either one of us is out, you know. So, but like I said, it all worked out.
Do you spend a lot of time in the rule book?
Not as much as you would think. No, I talked to Ray Montgomery a lot to it. He's
it's important for the bench coach to know what's going on.
100%. Yeah, he's the right guy for sure.
That was always one thing. I know, like Mike Socha used to talk about this. I believe I heard that he would read the rule book like every offseason, just even the same stuff, you know, for however many years you're in baseball, just to always kind of stay up on it. I always found that kind of interesting to really know the ins and outs of every rule, because that is tough, especially in your role behind the plate where you're managing the pitchers while you're understanding everything out there on the field, the way the timer works into all that. I would think that's probably can be pretty confusing at times.
Yeah, absolutely. The clock is the biggest one. That's the one I'm asking the most questions about. So there are a lot more loopholes than I thought there would be, and there's a lot more things that can and can't happen than I thought there would be just with a clock counting down, you know. So it's pretty interesting to hear umpires' perspectives of it. And I mean, it'll impact the game in a big spot. With one thing I'm learning, if it's a low leverage spot, it's not going to matter, and no one's really going to pay much mind to it. But when you need it to happen, like a walk-off homer, you really start stressing because you don't know what's going to happen.
Do you want to share with us now what that thing is, or we're going to wait to see it in the game?
No.
It's okay. We're gonna wait to see it in the game.
We'll wait.
Okay, understood. How about this? You talk about leading the young players as they're coming up, and your responsibility and your role there. Meanwhile, in many ways, Logan, you're leading this team now at the big league level at 24 years old in a clubhouse with Mike Trout, with Anthony Rendon, guys that have been there and done it. What's that like?
It's a lot of listening. Like you said, Mike, Tony, Drury, KP, like these guys have been doing it way longer than I have. I mean, I watched, not to make Tony and Mike feel old, but I watched those guys growing up, Drew too and KP, but I was at games that they were playing in, you know, so like who am I to go in and start barking orders with these guys? And like I said, it's a lot of listening because they have so much knowledge and been doing it for so long. Even the other night, like in the tubs with Drew and Tony, and I was just listening, and I told Drew I could have sat there for another 8 hours, you know, like I just love listening to those guys speak because it's just a different perspective, and I feel like it's just stuff I wouldn't have thought about, you know, but it's because of all the experience they have. So I'm grateful to have those moments with them. You
told me in the offseason that Anthony really was somebody that you connected with quite a bit over the winter and getting ready for the season. I don't obviously need the full details, but what is kind of what is a conversation like that like with Anthony Rendon? What are some of the things that maybe you're trying to pick up on what he can share with you?
Yeah, a lot of it is on the hitting side, navigating at bats, looking for different things from pitchers, and I'm just really impressed and grateful that Tony has even taken that time to do that with me, you know, and I mean, no one knows he does that, and that's you know, that's something I wish more people knew. I mean, he called me, he was on a family vacation, and it was late at night after he could put his kids to bed. Like, people don't see that side of Tony, and that's what frustrates me. And I wish more people knew it because he's one of my favorite guys in that clubhouse.
Yeah, it seems that way, and I think it's interesting to hear you give that perspective and shine a little bit of light on that, which is really cool to hear. A little bit about your upbringing. We've talked about this before, but I think it's worth mentioning again. Your parents are amazing, and I got to spend a lot of time with your dad last year, and I saw your parents out here at a game earlier on this homestand. How important is the family dynamic? You got your sister living out here in Southern California with you. How important is family to Logan O'Hoppe?
It's bigger than baseball. It's bigger than any stats. It's bigger than all the stuff we talked about earlier with the diet and the nutrition. It's bigger than all of it, without question, too. I mean, I wouldn't be anywhere without these people, and I got three of the best, as you or anybody else that has met them knows. So, I make it a little emotional if I start talking about them, but I miss them a lot this year, and they've done a lot for me.
You've also been somebody that's been very active in the community, and I know Corey's promise is something that's really important to you. Not to pile on while you're on the brink of tears here,
you're good.
But I would love for you to maybe tell us a little bit about what Corey's promise is all about.
Yeah, Corey's Promise is a foundation to help families of pediatric cancer patients. Corey is one of my best friends and passed away from leukemia, and that was in 22 now, and in October of 22, and his family started this foundation because his promise was he always wanted to help the families, and he was a pitcher with the Phillies, so he always said when he would play in the big leagues he would help these families and do what they're doing now. So we're keeping his name alive, and we got a couple events coming up that we're excited to announce, but got some good things going on at home that are involved in that foundation as well, and I'm so happy that the Fallons are doing what they're doing, and so proud of them for all they've done, and it's a pretty good cause. I'm happy we're keeping his name alive.
I love it, and I love seeing your teammates rocking it too. It seems like you've gotten a lot of buy-in. This group seems close. I mean, I've been calling you guys the 25U crew, like this young core that's come up, but it really does seem like there is some momentum here. Do you guys ever talk about what this next wave of what Angels baseball is going to look like as you guys all go from getting your feet wet to full-on swimming here at the big league level?
Yeah, we don't talk about the future too much. We try to just wrap ourselves up in the now. I mean, we have a prayer for tonight. We got to get the game going tonight. Yeah. So we don't talk much about it. In the off season, we do. But I mean, I think it's all something we have in mind. I mean, we all want to be here for a while and start winning games and turning things around. So it is on the forefront of a lot of our guys' mind.
How about Ron Washington being your manager and the things that he brings in? I know, I feel like every time I look at the field, him and Zach are together. Yeah. But the impact that he has made, really it's been about changing the culture, changing a lot of different things here. How would you describe the impact Ron Washington has made here as we've seen a first half of the season? Yeah,
Wash is great. He's as advertised. He came in with energy from day one and has really held guys accountable and told them what they need to hear, and myself included. So I've appreciated all he's done and learned a lot for him, and grateful to have a guy like that in the clubhouse.
All right, Logan, I will tell you this. When you go to the beach in Orange County, Newport, Huntington, that's what an actual beach looks like, and not some inland lake area.
I'm not denying that.
That's okay. Logan, man, appreciate you. Great stuff, and thanks for coming.
No, thank you, Trent. Appreciate it.
Thanks for checking out the Under the Halo podcast. You can always watch the Under the Halo podcast if you're listening right now on the Angels YouTube page, or if you're watching already, be sure to hit that subscribe button. If you'd ever like to listen to a previous episode, you go to angels.com/podcast, or you can listen wherever you're getting podcasts already. Again, my name is Trent Rush. This has been the Under the Halo podcast.